What's up guys, getting a little bit of work done on my 1959 Ford. So I've done a couple videos on this truck before, but in case you haven't seen them, I'll give you a little recap of this truck. So I've been obsessed with these trucks for a long time, and I first saw one of these when I was about 10 years old, if that, in a movie called Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3. This was the movie truck that one of the characters drove, and I just thought it was the coolest truck, coolest vehicle I've ever seen. Well, except for maybe Cloudbuster. But I fell in love with this truck. I knew someday I'd have one. I didn't know what it was, so I did a lot of research. And back then, you didn't really have internet. Well, you did, but not like smartphones and stuff. So I finally figured out it was a 1959 Ford, and it was very hard to find. And that was the first year Ford made its own four-wheel drive truck. So I found, not this one, but one just like it was a 1959 Ford. It was rusted really bad though, so I found another one. Before you know it, years go by and I have almost 25, 30 of these trucks. I was buying these things anytime I found them. Even if they were rotted out, sunk in the mud, sitting in the weeds, I'd buy them and just salvage any parts I could find. So I'll give you a little rundown. So it's a full tube chassis I built because the factory frame on these trucks was strong for a stock truck, but when you add 44-inch tires and a big motor, the factory frame just couldn't handle the power. So I built a tube chassis. It's a full tube chassis. You can see the link suspension, king coilovers, and these link suspension uses the same size Heim joints that I use on my full-size monster truck. Right here, they're 1.25" Heim joints made by FK. FK makes the best ones. QA1s are okay too, but FK is the best. So anyway, 44-inch tires. It's got a small block stroker motor in it. I've had a lot of different engines in this thing, big blocks, everything, but for me, small blocks just seem to be really snappy. Axles right here. These are made by a company called Dynatrac. I had them custom made. It's a big day in the 80s in this thing. Look at the size of that center section. It's four-wheel disc brakes, dual piston calipers. I put a Hydro Boost unit in it. So it's got a Detroit locker rear and a Detroit True Track front. Exterior-wise, it looks just like the movie truck. You can put the jerry cans, cut fenders, KC daylighters. Only difference really is the tires. So these are 44-inch Super Swamper TSLs. Movie truck used Denman Groundhogs, but they're out of business, so they're hard to find these days. So right there's the motor. Normally there's a brace that connects shock tower to shock tower. I got it out just because I was working on it. So right there you can see the Hydro Boost unit. Recent modification I did was, if you take a look right here, remote oil filter. You can see it right there too. So before, the oil filter sat behind the steering shaft and it was a pain to do an oil change. I had to remove the steering shaft, which sucked. So now with the remote oil filter, it takes me 5 minutes to do an oil change. So this weekend's project was a fuel system. So a while ago I switched, the fuel cap right here was a red flip top cap and it leaked water. This setup's nice, no more leaks, but when you buy these fuel cells, they come with foam. Some of them, you can get them without the foam, but this one came with foam in it, and the idea with that is to stop the fuel from sloshing around. But that foam broke down, and it got everywhere in the fuel system, destroyed the fuel system. So this weekend's project, I emptied out the fuel cell, cleaned it out, I changed all the fuel lines. Right here you can see it's a Dash 10 AN line going to aeromotive A1000. That's always been my go-to fuel pump. It's got a pre-filter and after. So I took that filter apart, cleaned it, and it was just full of all that fuel cell foam. So definitely don't recommend using that stuff. Right here is one of the fittings. This is the fuel feed line that's in the fuel cell. So you can see right there, it's corroded real bad. That's what happens when water mixes with fuel and sits there for a little while. So got that all taken care of, new lines, new fittings, clean the filters out. So now it runs awesome. Right now it's carbureted. It's a quick fuel 4-barrel with mechanical secondaries. I'll be switching this to fuel injection, most likely, probably like a Holley HP setup. Still have to do a little research on that, but other than that, I've just been tinkering around with this thing. I'll show you the inside. Right there, I put a Baja Designs dome light. That's pretty cool. Anybody who knows about LED lights, Baja Designs like the king of lighting. I put a CD player in it. It's pretty cool. I built custom aluminum bracket tie machine to put 3.5-inch round speakers underneath the dash. And behind the seat, just some, I believe those are 6-inch rounds. So it's pretty cool. I can go down the road, crank We Are the World. If you take a look at this transmission tunnel right here, that's pretty cool. So the factory one was just a stamped steel piece. But the problem is, because I built a tube chassis, the transmission and transfer case bolt to a cross member, but also to the top of the chassis and the trans tunnel, so there wasn't enough room for the stock stamped steel cover. So this one I made bolts right in place, but it's made out of 3/16 thick aluminum. And even the factory one was kind of a pain to remove with the seat in the way. So I made this one two-piece. You could take a look, you can see there's a seam right there, and it's bolted with 5 bolts. And on the back side, it bolts to a flange, and I put a steel thread insert so I don't have to worry about the aluminum stripping out. So that's a huge upgrade. It was so loud before without having the tunnel in there. And then I put this little bracket right there as like a pedal riser, so this way once the carpet's in, it's going to be perfect like driving position. One other thing I did too was I adjusted the brake pedal. I made my own brake pedal arm, because factory this had a little single reservoir master cylinder and a very long pedal. The pedal came down real far and was up real high, so you had a higher ratio. It's called a pedal ratio, and that acted kind of like a power assist. But because I have hydro boost, I don't need that, so I put the brake pedal in a nice position, so it's really easy to drive. I relocated the transfer case shift levers right here. Before it was on this side, so I just extended it, put it right there. So between that being relocated, the pedal position, it's much better and more comfortable to drive. And then once the carpet's in, it'll come up to about here, so it'll sit nice and flush. It's going to be perfect. I still have to change the steering wheel. Normally I use the factory steering wheels, but I put this little one on here because all the steering wheels I have, the original ones, are all cracked and damaged real bad, and they're hard to find. So eventually I'll find a clean one. Still have to put together a gauge package. So this is the factory gauges. None of them work, but Dakota Digital makes a really nice setup. I also have a lot of these pieces with the gauge clusters. I thought about taking some aftermarket gauges, make them look just like the factory ones, but we'll see. Right now I have some switches out because I'm putting more modern switches, but they're going to look just like the originals. So what I mean by that is, this is the headlight switch. If you look at it, it looks just like the 59 original switch, but I put different electronics in the back of it, and the wiring harness goes through relays. Instead of from the factory, the battery power will go from the battery through the switch to the headlights. That puts a lot of load on the switch. So by setting up with relays, it takes a lot of load off the switch, puts more power to the lights, so lights are a little brighter. Other than that, the 59 Ford interior is pretty bare bones. It's loud in here, it's like a drum. I gotta clean up this roof a little bit. It had somebody glued like a headliner and some insulation, so once I sand that off, I got some Dynamat right here. This is Extreme Dynamat. This stuff's the best. And that'll make for a nice quiet cab. So now that all the big stuff's done, I just got to go through, clean up a few things like some wiring in here. When I rewired, I just kind of hooked things up, and now I'll clean up, use the DR25 wire sheathing. I got to wire up the KC daylighters. Probably going to change this window. I have tons of windows, tons of doors and all that stuff. I left it on. I thought it looked cool with the bullet holes in it. They were there when I bought one of the trucks that these doors came off of, but I'm always afraid things are just going to fall apart. Right now, as you can see, there's no windshield wipers. I have a brand new motor, new in the box. I think I got that right over here. Yeah, this right here, this is cool. This is an NOS, meaning new old stock wiper motor from 1959. I also have a bunch of stock motors. I thought about seeing if I could modify one to put a newer style motor and put like intermittent wipers. That'd be pretty cool. As far as interior goes, this thing is clean. It's a rust-free cab, which is very hard to find these 59s. That's why I built this truck out of all the ones I had. This is the cleanest one. So I'm definitely gonna put a carpet. Not sure if I want carpet or a vinyl mat. It'd be a shame to cover up that transmission tunnel, but it's gonna make it drive a lot better, be quieter on the road and everything, more comfortable. As far as the seat, this is actually a factory seat, reupholstered, custom like black and gray. It's almost like a denim material. The reason I picked that was because in the movie, and I studied every scene of that movie, I paused it every time, zoomed in on everything just to study every screenshot of that truck. And there's a scene where you see the truck coming at you, and you could clearly see in the middle, the truck has a seat cover, and then it says Datsun, but upside down, like they took a seat cover for a Datsun. So I kind of just had this reupholstered to match that as close as possible. Again, I'll be putting the Dynamat on the roof, in the corners here, and all in the cab, make it nice, quiet, keep it cooler. I might even put an air conditioning system in this truck. There's so many nice ones out these days, like vintage air and all that stuff. jerry cans, cut fenders, just like a movie truck. Cool thing about the movie truck, well, not really cool, but interesting, was that the one used in the movie was only a 2-wheel drive, 6-cylinder truck. So it's definitely cool to have this truck running really good again, because it kind of went on the back burner for a little bit while I was working on the monster truck. So this thing is cool too. Last show, the MSD ignition box went bad, but I sent it out to MSD, got it back. Now this thing's running like a bear. So definitely have more shows coming up soon with this thing. All right, let's go for a little ride. Let it warm up for a second. Yeah, so that was cool. Truck ran awesome. Another neat thing is in the fall, this guy I know has a pretty big YouTube channel. He does all car stuff. He's coming up here in the fall to film this truck. He saw a video of it and some pictures because a while ago, this guy I know was a photographer, asked me if he could use this truck and do some shoots with the model. So that was pretty cool. There's some pictures of this truck on Instagram with some hot babes all over it. But anyway, so that's another reason I've been doing a lot of work to this thing. I want to make sure that this thing's running tip top when this guy comes up here to film it. So when he does, I'll definitely put links to that channel. So anyway, that's it for now. Take care. Thanks for watching. Like, subscribe, hit the bell. Bye.